Hi, and welcome to my channel. I'm Yumna Suddi, and I'm going to be reviewing the Kite Runner book by Khaled Hosseini. If you haven't read this book, then I think you're quite missing a lot, because this book is one of the most overwhelming books that you might ever read. Okay, I'll try to give you some reasons why you should read this book if you haven't read it. The first thing is that it's totally overwhelming. It's overwhelming since the very first page of it till the very last page. It's totally captivating. So let me give you the story of how I started reading this book. I bought this book around 5 months before I started reading it. Okay? I just put it on my shelf. And I just kept looking at the book every now and then. And then I thought, I want to start reading this book, but perhaps I don't have the energy to do so now. And I kept doing that all the time. I want to read it, but no. Read it now? No. Okay, now let's read it. Still no. Okay, until one time, I don't know why. Perhaps out of curiosity, I don't know. I just grabbed the book out of the shelf. And I started reading the first page. Actually, I was currently reading another book. However, I did not manage to come closer to this book. I just wanted to read the first page so that I know what it talks about. And ever since the first page, I couldn't stop reading the book. I couldn't leave it. So since the very first page of the book, it's captivating. It's like you read and you feel like, I'm very curious. I really want to know what happens next. And then you start reading and reading the second page, third page, fourth page, until perhaps the 70th page or something like this, until you get the first idea resolved, kind of. Not resolved, I mean, it's just that your curiosity is somehow satisfied, that you know why this happened. And then things start to unfold again on many other actions or many events that are related to this first event, and so on across the whole book. You're constantly captivated. You're constantly surprised with lots and lots of plot twists. Believe me, until the very last page of the book, you still don't know what's going to happen. Really, until the last chapter, I seriously didn't know what's going to happen. So this is a short synopsis of how this book is seriously overwhelming. So if you really want to start reading a book that is quite interesting, and when I say interesting, it's really interesting, it's really captivating, it's really engaging, like you cannot stop reading, then you definitely should start reading The Kite Runner. Okay, the second reason why you should start reading The Kite Runner is the whole lot of information that you would know just because of this book. Let me give you an example. Imagine that your professor at college gives you the assignment to make a presentation about Afghanistan, the political situation, the history of it, some aspects regarding the culture of it, and you don't have the slightest idea of what actually Afghanistan is, except that it's a country. Okay, let's imagine this. What would you feel? Like, seriously? Oh, Afghanistan? What? I don't know anything about it, perhaps. Just perhaps the slightest bit of information. However, when you finish this book, perhaps you would go to your professor and tell him or her, please, I want to make my presentation on Afghanistan, on its culture, on its history, on its politics, on anything related to it. You will start to feel engaged. You'll start to feel interested in this culture. You'd like to know more. You'd like to watch documentaries. You'd like to watch films or anything related to this culture. Well, I think the credit of this should go to Khaled Hosseini because of his cleverness. I mean, it's amazing how the author is able to provoke the interest in the reader to know about a whole culture, to be interested in a whole culture just because of a book. So I think this is actually a very clever thing, very creative, and this gives you an insight about how this book actually talks about. So this is one aspect that you should take into consideration if you are considering your thoughts about either you should read this book or no. So you definitely have to. Okay, the third reason is the intense emotions in this book. If you're interested, or if you're a fan of emotions, and if you like to get touched of a book, not just because of a piece of information, or not just because of some fun that you would have after reading one book. No, if you really are interested, or if you are that type of people who would like to get touched, to get romantically entangled with the book, then you definitely would like to read this book, because this book is a portable version of intense emotions. You would go through a roller coaster of emotions, a whole spectrum of emotions during this book. This, I think it's like 300? Yeah, 300 pages or something like this. You would feel happy. You'd feel sad, very sad. You would feel angry. You'd feel empathetic. You would cry, you would laugh, everything in this book, everything. And it's just, it's an intensifier of emotions. I mean, it's a device that intensifies emotion, if we have to put this into words. Okay, and the fourth reason is the style of writing. It's simple and sophisticated at the same time. I mean, it's deep, it's philosophical, and it's simple. You get the point? I mean, it's this perfect balance between sophisticated and deep and philosophical, and also easy for anyone to read it. It's meticulously crafted. It's amazing. It has lots of metaphors, lots of quotations. Oh my God, it's like the whole book is highlighted. I couldn't stop highlighting and actually writing my notes inside the book. I mean, it's a juicy material of quotations and discussion, of course. So if you're the type of people who would like to highlight things while reading the book, or you'd like to get actually some quotations out of this book, then get ready and buy your marker, because you're going to be highlighting each and every single thing in this book, because it really deserves. Okay, the fifth reason, if you are from an Oriental background, especially if you're an Arab, you would definitely feel interested in this book. First of all, the culture of Afghanistan is quite similar to the Oriental Arab culture. And I really didn't know this before reading this book. There are lots of similarities, and that was actually mesmerizing to me. Like, how come? How come this culture is so close to my own culture, and I didn't know about it before? Also, the incorporation of the foreign words is quite interesting, because you'll find out that you know most of these words, because, as I said, of the similarities between the cultures, and even some similarities in the usage of the language. Actually, what also was mesmerizing to me is how similar it is to the Persian culture. Almost the same. Not very much the same, of course, but it's very, very similar. And I didn't know this before, because I'm very interested in the Persian culture, the Persian language, and Persian poetry, Persian music, and all of these things. So I didn't know this about Afghanistan before. So that was quite interesting to me, to know how close these cultures are to each other. So if you're also quite interested in the Persian culture, which is, by the way, quite similar to the Arab culture, you might like reading this book, and yeah, you would enjoy it. So let me give you some information about this book before I start the spoilery section. Okay, the book is written by Khaled Hosseini, and he is an Afghan-American author. Actually, he's a doctor, and believe it or not, after finishing this book, you would not believe this is his first book. This is his debut. It's like, I couldn't imagine that you could start off by writing such a masterpiece. It's amazing, and amazing that it is the first trial. Yeah, and actually this is a reason why I felt very interested to read more books by Khaled Hosseini, because if the first book looks like this, then what about the other books? And yeah, I did that. I read another book which is also very famous, which is called 1,000 Splendid Suns, and I might tell you later how much I liked that book, the other book, 1,000 Splendid Suns, and how similar or different was it from this book. Anyway, so let's talk about the setting. It is, as you guessed, set in Afghanistan, and I'm not gonna give away too much information about it, because if I give you some hints about this book, it's not going to be as astonishing as when you read it yourself and discover it yourself. So I don't want to spoil or ruin this joy for you now. So perhaps now you have some reasons, enough reasons to go and start reading this book. And after finishing it, you can come again and continue watching the spoilery section. Okay, well, bye for now. Okay, fellow readers, have you felt what I felt? Because overwhelming, I think it's not an enough word to describe this book. Everything is strike. Do you know when you watch a beautiful Indian movie that plays very well in your emotions, that you feel like you are so close to your tears, even if you're not the crying type of a person who would cry easily on a movie? This type of movies that would show you how emotional you could be. This book had me feel like this. It's like Khaled Hosseini meticulously portrays emotions in a way that you don't imagine, that you don't expect. I mean, the starting from the first thing that you got to know from the book, I mean, it strikes you with overwhelm. This relationship between Amir and Ali is very beautiful. And that the first word that Ali said was Amir, and the first word that Amir said was Baba. So this summarizes the whole relationship. Oh my God. It was very surprising to me by the almost end of the book that they are half brothers. Oh my God, are you serious? Perhaps that's why this connection is there, the bond between Ali and Amir. So Ali is the younger brother of Amir. So yeah, I really don't know, you see? So you could feel the warmth of the bond between them and how much Ali, I mean, now you can explain why Ali is so faithful, very faithful to his friend, brother. You see, it's because perhaps there is this bond, this connection, this blood connection that either of them is able to explain. I mean, it's very beautiful when you learn about all these things that you had to do together, and they would hang out, they would go to the cinema, play together, all of their times are spent together. It's very, very sweet, and the connection between them is something that tears your heart later on to know how they separated. This was very painful. This was really, heartbreaking. So since the very start of the book, you know the priorities of each of the two characters, Ali and Amir. Ali's priority is Amir, of course, and Amir's priority is his father. So, for the sake of his father, he chose not to take an action and help Ali while he was actually raped by that guy. So this quite explains, and the fact that Ali did not want to say anything about it just because of Amir. Well, this explained it very, very much, the priorities thing. And actually, the fact that Amir has thought of this accident as a mistake that kept haunting him throughout his life is something that is really heartbreaking to me. Because, okay, imagine a child of such an age with those conflicts. How and the situation was sudden. How would he be able to react to such a thing? I mean, it is too much of a stress to him. Too much of a stress to keep reminding himself of this mistake. I know, yes, it's not the best thing to do in a hardship, in a hard situation. However, imagine his conflict as a child of 11 years old or 12 years old who has to go through all this all alone for the sake of something that he is trying very, very hard to achieve, which is his father's satisfaction, and still he is unable to achieve it. So it's a big conflict and big stress, I might say. So I really feel pity for him. And you know what? Although Ali seems to be the weak or the inferior part of the story, I just quite feel the opposite. Because at least Ali had a father who would share with him his emotions, his thoughts, which is the vital thing in life, to be able to share what you feel, what you bottle up. So I felt like Amir is the one to pity instead of Ali. Yes, Ali, of course, it's a hardship, and what he has gone through is really hard, really hard. But I mean, if we have to somehow put a comparison between the two, although comparison is not something that I would usually do, but I mean, if I would say who perhaps feels more pitiful than the other, I think it's Amir. Amir had no one, no mother, no father, and his only friend is the cause of his misery because of this dreary conflict within him because of Ali. So this was actually something that made me feel, heartbroken and upset for Amir throughout the whole book until he became a young man and then later on a man and so on. Still, I pity him. Another thing in this book is that it's too realistic to the extent of frustration. You're frustrated all the time because things do not unfold the way you would wish for them to do. I mean, it's not like a young adult book that it will have lots of hardship, but then everything is gonna get resolved at the end. It's a climax, but yes, the damsel in distress is going to be saved at the end. This kind of cheesy sequence of events that no matter how hard things happen in the book, things will get resolved at the end, and you know this. So you feel kind of satisfied because, okay, perhaps you feel this suspense because, okay, when will it get resolved? But I know it's gonna get resolved, but when? So this is actually perhaps the point of suspense. However, it's never like this in this book. It's never like this. Things never get resolved. Frustration after frustration, plot twist after plot twist. And all these plot twists make you feel frustrated at the end because they are not how you would wish for them to be. And oh my God, when Hassan died, oh my God. Actually, this is the definition of frustration. Because, when this whole accident happened and they had to separate and Hassan had to leave to that Hazara land, okay, so your curiosity started to grow higher and higher. Okay, what's gonna happen next? How would they reunite one more time? Okay? And many things happen, and they travel to America, and all these things happen, okay, and then towards the end of the book, he would finally go to Rahim Khan. Okay, so you would start to, your hopes will start to raise that perhaps they will get reunited again, Hassan and Amir. Okay, and when they start talking together, Rahim Khan and Amir, okay, and so on, so you start, to anticipate when he's going to talk about Hassan. And when he starts talking about Hassan, you'll learn of his death. This is so realistic. I mean, it's something that could happen in everyday life. I mean, it's in real stories that they are not as you wish for them to be. However, it's you who feel frustrated. Yes, it is a real story, but you feel frustrated. I mean, why do you make it so realistic, Khaled Hosseini? Why? You frustrate us. You disappoint us. Okay, we want to have some hope, perhaps hope in it. I know that this is how life in general proceeds. Not everything that we wish for we can actually have. However, it's just a book. I know that I'm just being romantic, perhaps, but I just really wanted some, perhaps not happy ending, but something happy. My expectations to be met, perhaps what we wish for to happen, or perhaps I really don't know. It's very clever. I admit this. However, I'm just talking about what I felt reading this book. I just really wanted my hopes to be met, but this was nothing. This was nothing to be true. Yeah, and even after this whole immense lot of frustration learning about Hassan's death, okay, and you feel that, okay, at least we're gonna start a new page with his son Sohrab, and perhaps he's gonna bring him up, or it's gonna be a happy life or better opportunities or whatever it is. Things get complicated one more time, and not one more time, till the end of the book they don't get resolved. And oh my God, that scene when Sohrab committed suicide. Wow. Oh my God, that was intense. I felt like, okay, I just don't have the energy to continue reading this book. I don't want. Perhaps I could read it later. It's just, is it too dark or am I too sensitive? But I really don't know, but I felt this is too intense, okay? And the portrayal of how Hassan or how Sohrab reacted towards the end of the book, or perhaps the last chapter or something, and how he was totally silent and so on. This was brilliant. However, this was very upsetting, very disappointing, very heartbreaking. I was very, very touched. I felt like I want to hug that kid. I don't know. I totally visualized it. I totally visualized this situation, the family, what's happening. And yeah, so again, this is the cleverness of Khaled Hosseini. However, yep, a little dark, or perhaps too much dark, but interesting after all. And of course, it added a lot to me. I knew a lot about how people live, about their conflicts, about the real situations, not just the things that are in the movies or in the books. No, the real situations, what people really feel. Yeah, and by the way, perhaps unlike many people, I liked the character of Amir's father, kind of. Yes. I mean, it was, well, before I knew that he was actually the father of Hassan, he was kind of an idol. I mean, I put myself in the shoes of Amir and saw Baba from the same lens. I mean, he was quite glorified, this idol, this father figure, this amazing person, and so on. So I also felt like he was a great man, perhaps. I mean, I could feel and sympathize with Amir for having, or for feeling that he loved his father that much and that he couldn't get closer to him. So I felt like this, and I had this, admiration of the character of the father, or of Baba. And actually, it's quite interesting that he has no name, except perhaps it was mentioned once or twice during the novel, except Baba, which emphasizes how the most important role of his life in this book is the father role, which he did not play very well. And it broke my heart at the end when I knew about his illness. I felt like this great figure who had all this power is eventually that ill, that needy, that helpless. This actually broke my heart, not just because of the character of the Baba figure, but because of how inhuman could end up being. Anyway, it was also some aspect of how Khaled Hosseini can magically play with the emotions of the readers. This total shift of anger, perhaps, then pity, then sadness, and yeah. Okay, and finally, I would like to talk about the cinematic adaptation of the book. Well, actually, I haven't watched the full movie. However, I've just seen some clips here and there, some scenes here and there, okay? And yeah, as usual, the movie is something that is totally different from the book, because you imagine situations, you imagine people, you imagine characters, you imagine facial expressions of characters and reactions to situations that is totally different from how they actually are in the movie. So I actually imagined Hassan to be someone perhaps a little slimmer, and perhaps with slightly darker skin tone, like a tanned tone, and with green or greenish, hazel greenish eyes, and kind of like this. And Amir would, actually, I didn't have great image about Amir. However, I had a lot of visualization of how Hassan would be, of how Ali would be, of how the father, he was very satisfying. Actually, the father was very satisfying. However, I just thought of him as younger than this. I mean, in the book, he seemed a little older, even at a young age. When he was younger, he felt, perhaps he seemed older than how I imagined him to be. However, it was kind of very, very, very satisfying to feel like this is the character of the Baba. And yeah, the character of Amir as well, when he was a grown-up man. Well, so perhaps those are my thoughts on the movie, since I haven't watched all of it, so I couldn't have more things to say about it. Anyway, perhaps I could watch it later, and yeah, perhaps I could write my review on the movie in the description box, perhaps, or I just really don't know. Anyway, I'm satisfied, very much satisfied with the book, that I don't even need to watch the movie one more time. Anyway, thank you very, very much for watching. This was my review about The Kite Runner. Of course, there are lots and lots and lots of other aspects that I could have talked about. However, it wouldn't be enough in such a YouTube video. Anyway, I really hope you enjoy the book if you haven't read it, or since it's the spoilery section, so you have read it. So I hope you enjoyed reading it. And yeah, I would like to know your opinions and comments about this book. So please give me a thumbs up, press the subscribe button, and see you in next videos, inshallah. Bye.